So before we get started, raise a hands if you know you need to use data to personalize your member or customer experiences. Good amount of hands. Now leave your hands up if you feel like you have a good strategy around that. Well, great. Few of you, so we may call you up on stage, but for the rest of you, we put together a really great panel. So we know our consumers expect personalized digital experiences. When I log into Amazon, they know what I need before I do. Netflix knows what I want to watch before I do. So we need to be thinking about that when we're engaging with our customers and members. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off our introductions. I'm Chris Frianza, SVP of Sales and Partnerships with Savvy Money. We provide an integrated credit score solution and offer engine to about 1,100 community financial institutions. We've got a few of our famous partners on stage. And next, I'm going to hand it over to Tracy to introduce herself.
Thanks. So I'm Tracy Michelle, Chief Operating Officer for Metro Credit Union. We're a $3.2 billion credit union based out of the Boston area, and clients of Savvy Money and clients of Glia. So looking forward to talking to you today.
Keep with the intro.
Hey, so David Brooks, I'm the US Managing Director of Monevo, and we provide pre-qual solutions to financial institutions.
I'm Zach Eichener. I'm the SVP of Digital Experience for Community Financial Credit Union, a community chartered credit union, $1.5 billion in Metro Detroit. Also clients of Glia and Savvy Money, both where I'm at now and when I was at Forefront Credit Union before. So have some experience with these guys.
And I am Casey Jones. I lead our diversified financial division at Glia. We're a digital customer service platform. Fortunate to have a couple of our clients here today, but we help companies redefine how they interact with their clients. So we look forward to spending some time today. Thanks.
So with that, first question. Oh, I feel like I'm on a game show. What are you seeing as the big trends in the financial services industry today? And David, I think you're in the hot seat first.
I shouldn't have sat in the middle. So I think certainly from the part of the industry that we're involved in, I think obviously we've seen a greater adoption of embedded finance. So I think really FIs need to pay attention to the fact that there are brands with loyal customers that are looking to provide financial products directly to their consumers. So I think that's a big area of growth and interest in the market. I think there is a general greater adoption of personalization within the space. So both, certainly the products that we deal with, credit cards, personal loans, there is a greater adoption of that, but I think there's still a long way to go. And I think also just from trends, there's just an increasing amount of data options available, so whether that's alternative data or traditional data. So I think we all still are coming to, we're grappling with how to actually use that in our customer experiences. So,
Zach, from a credit union perspective, what trends are you seeing?
I mean, what's old is new, and what's new is still the same, right? Consumer expectations continue to go up, and so the ability to move things quickly and in a relevant manner will always be something I think super important, and the tolerance for non-specific kind of offers and communications, it just keeps going down. Obviously, we've got technology moving at a breakneck pace. You've got everything, with ChatGPT. You've got, your Zests of the world that are doing things in a completely automated and using AI machine learning to do better loan decisions and those things. And so that is that competition, that challenge. And yet at the same time, there's so many institutions that still the standard jobs to be done and the transactions aren't easy enough, right? It's one of those where we did our own internal review, and we're working on fractional investing and Bitcoin investing, and yet I found out that if you didn't know your username, you couldn't self-serve or request that, right? It's that just juggling that with trying to chase what's new and where the new expectations are going, but kind of earning that right first. And so I think that's still something that's super important, that we really get our jobs to be done lined up well first before we start getting too far ahead of ourselves.
And do you think your members expect you to personalize their digital experiences? I mean, we all know everybody has access to endless amounts of data. I mean, I would expect it.
Yeah, I think they're open to it. I don't know that they expect it yet because I don't think that banks and credit unions are doing a great job with it yet, right? So I think that while the expectation isn't there, but the being open to it is there, and I think that there's more question on the why aren't you personalizing, right? Because the value is there, the relevancy is there. Fortunately or unfortunately, it just hasn't been something that's really been successfully rolled out across the majority of banks and credit unions, regardless of size.
And one more question for you, and then I'll take you out of the hot seat. But so when we were chatting before this, you talked about using data in a respectful way. And so a lot of the data that financial institutions has is sensitive data. It's PII. So, and you mentioned using it in a respectful way. I mean, I think this group would value in learning more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of information. If we don't use any of it, we're not doing a good job. If we use too much and it gets kind of creepy, right, then we could turn people off with, I know you have the data, but why are you doing this to me? So I think it's being respectful, understanding a situation. Money is a taboo still. And you want to be able to meet people where they're at, understand their situation, and serve them up well, but not in a way that feels creepy or disrespectful, right? You don't want to pitch a secured credit card to every single person who might have a challenged credit score, right? Because that can feel condescending, right? So it's really understanding more of the behavioral activities of people, what they're doing, what's important to them, and treating them respectfully with it.
Just to add to that, so I think there's an awareness piece here as well, because I think that consumers just need to understand how their data is being used, because ultimately the use of data is going to serve them better. Certainly with that sort of transition to pre-qualifying consumers, we see a marked difference in sort of customer performance down funnel with somebody just direct apply versus pre-qual. So I think there's an awareness piece there as well.
Part of being respectful with that data is being a good steward of it first and foremost. So it really boils down to your governance and taking a step back. I mean, we know where we want to get to, but take a step back and look at all of those core data sources that you intend to use and understand how you get that information in the first place, whether it's consumer provided, it's coming in from a third party, it's an integration that's feeding it, and take the time to document all of that in your space. Write your own data dictionary, if you will, and understand how it gets updated. If it's a piece of information that can change over time, make sure that you understand how it's changing, by what means, and that you have a way to make sure it's changing as you expect it to, because the worst thing we can do is make assumptions about the data that we have, use it in a particular way with that assumption in mind, and then fall flat on our face because something has changed in the ecosystem and we weren't aware of it. So data governance is a huge part of that strategy, and you shouldn't go too far down the path without building that foundation first.
And I think for me, I use a financial institution who's not a Savvy Money client, and so I live in the heart of Los Angeles. So if I was able to afford a home in LA, I probably wouldn't be up on this stage. But I got an email about taking out a home equity loan, and if they had used data in a respectful way, in my opinion, it's very easy to understand if I own my home, right? And then the next week I got an email about refinancing my mortgage. So it was kind of a 0 for 2. And so using data to me respectfully is making sure it's meaningful to me and not offending me that I can't afford a home in LA just yet, right?
Well, and say they get the third message right. Do you trust it now? Just because the first two were a fail, right?
Yeah.
So the trust isn't there.
One, but twice, exactly. All right, shifting gears a little bit, real life expectations versus, what we're able to provide. Is anybody here up on the stage giving really personalized digital customer experiences?
We're working towards it. I think we're all working towards it. And I think the key for us is there's no end game, right? Because it's a constantly moving target. And just when we think we've gotten to the current end game. Someone has moved that goalpost just that much further down. We are launching our digital branch next month, and our vision for that is providing full end-to-end paperless workflows for sales and service across all of our consumer products. That's a big ask of our teams and our partners, but they're supporting us in getting there and being able to meet members where they are. So they're coming to our website for sales and service. Let's make sure we can execute there end to end, and let's make sure, again, we can use data to help inform those conversations that they're having either with our automated agents or our human agents on our website.
And I think what's important with that too, right, is to get those personalized kind of offers out, is you've got to, again, start with knowing what you have, and then having the right partners who can build something out that is like a Savvy Money, where we've got all those credit scores, all that credit data, and then be able to give a relevant true offer of your score is this, you qualify not for a rate as low as, right? Here's the rate you qualify for, here's a structure you qualify for, do you want to take that on? So through a Savvy Money, through a Larky, through somebody like that, you've got some of those opportunities, but it's really taking more of the ownership. It's hard, it's complicated, right? Because you've got all the legacy systems and the disparate systems, and then you've got the risk and compliance and legal and all the kind of back office holding
not
back
fun
some of
stuff,
that as
sorry.
well. Love compliance people. Thank you. No, but so having it done, I think one of the most important things with it too is that while you want to make sure that you're intentional and you're mindful, that you don't want to wait for perfection because you're afraid of not looking like you know what you're talking about. Perfection doesn't exist. And if we can learn anything from the fintechs of the world, right, it's get something out there and keep iterating, right? Learn and grow and get better at targeting and better at communicating, better understanding, but make sure you've got the right partners, make sure you've got the right data, and that you've got a good strategy.
I used to work at Filene prior to Savvy Money, and so one of the things we would teach to credit unions specifically was, when was the last time anybody realized that Amazon's UI changed? It's always small, iterative changes that you don't realize, right? And it's continued to innovate. Sorry, cut you off.
No, that's okay. I was just going to speak to iterating because that is such a huge part of how we started to make a difference in the business. Was I have a team, a really strong team, but they can be perfectionists, right? And they want to get it 100% right before they release something out to the membership. While I appreciate that, sometimes if we wait for that 100%, we just will never get anything out there, and it'll be irrelevant by the time that we do. So I've been encouraging them more and more these days. Build one journey. Come up with one really good use case and map that out end to end and roll it out, and we'll learn from it because we're going to get data back now. Guess what? We get all this reporting and we can do all this analytics, and we can see whether it's working or not, and we can tweak it. So taking that approach of just putting one thing out in market and testing it, maybe you do an A/B test and you see what works better and what gets a better response, and then you can go from there. But to stop trying to achieve all of the objectives at once in a project, because in this day and age, it just doesn't fly anymore.
How about for Glia? How do you perfect the digital experience and personalize it?
Well, we tend to think of personalization in the sense of using data to interact with your clients better. And when you think about both of your organizations, I think you talked about it earlier, is how do you find a work stream or a journey and leverage data, but leverage the experience that that client's going to go through, but really map out how you're going to use data to affect the outcome. And that doesn't mean to just sell a product or service. It's how is your brand viewed? And if you think about kind of an easy way to think about it, like a client comes to all of your digital properties to do something, right? There's some sort of friction or pain point, and they either want to do something or they need to decide something. And those are two totally different experiences that require different skill sets, different data sets to help make an informed decision. And so clients like are sitting up on this stage are leveraging that data to empower their agents to turn from people who are just reactive to proactively being able to serve their customer, and that's meeting them where they like to be met. I personally like to work through chat or through digital channels. Someone else may love SMS, or someone else may want to actually go visit a branch, but the follow-on is all in a digital manner because they're working a job and it's difficult to come into the credit union. So we've seen big shifts, but at the end of the day, if you look at the studies, by leveraging data in a way where CX is a differentiator is huge. I mean, it's 6x to 14x bigger wallet share per customer for customers that are loyal to your brand. I mean, that's a big movement of the needle. So.
Next question is, how do we balance the human and digital interaction to build a complete customer experience? And going to go a little bit off kind of our talk track for a moment, so I hope somebody jumps in. If not, I will gladly talk, as I usually do. But so define a complete customer experience. Anybody want to take that one?
So there was a wonderful insurance company out there back in the day, Esurance, I think it was, and I was glad when their copyright kind of fell off on a slogan that they had, which really encompassed everything that I think still resonates today, which was technology when you want it, people when you don't. And that really, like, people want technology until they don't, and then they want a person now, and they want a person who knows what they're talking about, who knows how to handle it, right? Leveraging Glia has allowed us to do that piece, right? Because we can have that live on all of our digital properties. We can fire up video, we can do voice, we can do chat, we can do SMS, we can do WhatsApp, we can do whatever we need to do. We can bring in and meet them where they are when they get to that point of, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore, I need to know what to do. How do I get through the funnel? How do I get this transaction completed? Where's this transaction from? How do I, I don't recognize it, I don't want it. When you get that moment of truth, having a person that's there who can support you along that path is the absolute answer to getting that done and marrying that human and technology piece. And it goes back to why we need to have those standard jobs to be done really easy and really automated, because if it's hard enough to talk to a person to just get a transfer done, right? I need to be able to evolve my agents beyond that point of they're just taking orders and they're going to be proactive, but how well are they going to be counseling when half of their calls still are providing balances and transferring funds, right? It's hard to stay in that consultative state when that's where you're living through a lot of your day.
Yeah. We call it brick and click, so we're marrying the two. And when I say we're launching a digital branch, we're by no means abandoning the in-person experience. We grew branches by 25% last year. So we know that people want a branch nearby. They want to know that they can visit one if they have to, but they don't necessarily want to have to. And to speak to your point about, if you make a transfer so difficult, what's that next interaction going to look like? I think that our members are forecasting, what if I needed to use them to originate my mortgage? What kind of a nightmare would that be if we can't get through a basic, simple transaction with ease and in the way that I want to conduct that transaction? So it's trying to break down that barrier and give people options. And they'll be able to come in if they need to and get to the right person, but we can lift the load for those low-value transactions, if you will, things that are easier to solve for.
And that's what you and I actually were talking earlier today. You stopped by the booth, is around, one might call it low-value transactions, but they're typically higher in nature. So 80% of your transactions tend to be one way. It's someone paying a bill. It's someone perhaps transferring funds. But when things become more complex, or I'm looking for guidance and it turns from an I to a we, and you actually need to provide that seamless transition to someone who they may know in one of their local branches, maybe at your digital office that can help support that immediately, is so incredibly important, because it builds all of the rapport and all of the loyalty, frankly, to your brand, is that they know I get a great, delightful experience when it's transactional. I can self-serve, I can use a bot. Even if I know it's a bot and it's a good experience, that positive experience makes a big impact on how they view your brand. It's even better when I still want to say agent, 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 which we've all done before, and they don't all of a sudden say, here's our 800 number, please call. I mean, raise your hand in here if you've been on a digital property, work 10 to 15 minutes just to get a phone number and call and re-explain everything again. I mean, it's a horrible experience. But when it's becoming more complicated and all of a sudden you get Zach at your local, community financial credit union, hey, I'd love to help. and you're on the same page with them, it's a delightful experience. So there really are ways to affect change, and that change affects loyalty. So it's great to see what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think it goes right back to what you're saying. It does tie it back to the whole personalization piece, right? As you're building that credibility, right? Here's people who look out for me, who are there for me, and so now when they're sending me personalized offers that make sense. It's consistent with the experience I'm seeing, and that's what I want, because I think those are the two biggest challenges: is personalization and consistency across channel. I love the concept of going channel-less. I think that we never mastered omni-channel, so I think we're getting a little cocky. We start going like, oh, channel-less now. We're going to serve you everywhere, and there's not even a channel in existence. But
What was that term you just used?
what one? Channel-less?
Yeah.
Channelist.
Yeah.
Channel-less. Oh,
Channel-less.
I
Where there's no channels, right? It's everything is whatever you want, regardless of, right? And again, we aspire to that point, right? But what is that experience like? And are you journey mapping that so you can see like, oh yeah, we like the idea, but it's harder than it seems. But when you have the right tools, you have the right partners, you start building that experience and that credibility up, it just lends so much more power to those other things that you're doing. And it becomes that collaborative experience. The other thing, from a transparency standpoint, right? Tell them what you do with the data. Tell them when you're trying something new. Hey, we're doing something new. Would love your feedback. If we didn't get it right, tell us, and help them support that. And then they see themselves as a partner, right? And all of those things can really help build that confidence, that credibility, that strength, that relationship, and that loyalty that up until now, loyalty has meant it's hard to move your account. And fintech is making that not a thing anymore. And so when we just get pieces peeled away from that PFI, which will probably never happen again, how have we differentiated? How do we show that you want to stay with us and stay loyal if we're not meeting you where you're at and providing personal guidance along that journey?
So one thing you just said really stuck out to me about tell your customer what you're doing. I don't think I've ever seen that in the industry, based on mine. So, why would you do that, or why are so many hesitant?
And I don't know why people are hesitant, but talk about using data. We will, because we track member feedback. We track our employees submit feedback items when specific members are telling them that they don't like a policy or they don't like a practice or they're looking for a product. And we mine that when we have something coming out that would be relevant to that person. So assuming they're still with us, assuming they stayed the course, we can reach back out and say, hey, Mr. Member, you gave us feedback a few months ago that you didn't like this policy or you were looking for us to do this differently. Would you give us a try? Would you try this service and let us know what you think? And that's huge. They love that you had a way to remember that they gave you that feedback. So yeah, I don't know why more people don't do it.
Transparency. Customer satisfaction. I think in today's world, especially in a market where rates are rising, financial institutions are having to be competitive on rates for savings to capture deposits. What are you all doing to really help maintain and retain your customer relationships?
Shall I go first? Okay. Well, we don't necessarily have customers per se, but we work with financial institutions, and I think what's really critical is avoiding disappointment with consumers, and I think that allowing consumers to effectively kick the tire and see what's available to them at a personalized level, I think is critical to that experience. So obviously that's what we are very focused on as a business, is providing that level of personalization, pre-qual offers to consumers. So that's...
For us, it's seeing what's needed, and again, don't try to be perfect, but try to be relevant and meet people again where they're at. There was a really bad storm in Detroit, knocked out a ton of power. One of our employees who's remote was coming into town to work from our headquarters, was checking into a hotel and saw a family get turned away because they didn't have a credit card to reserve a room. And she's like, this is a problem, and these are people who, it's hitting everybody in Metro Detroit. That's where we serve. We need to do something about this. And so the next day, we launched out everybody gets approved for a credit card up to X dollars until we hit a certain dollar threshold internally. And we did it, and our call center got blown up. We stumbled in a few spots, and we took all that data back and said, okay, what did we do well and what didn't we do? But that's the stuff that if you can do that, and it didn't cost us a ton, if you can do that, that's how you keep people realizing that even in the day of personalization and everything being, digital and feeling impersonal sometimes, right? That you can do something relevant and meaningful quickly, and that breeds so much loyalty. When I worked, I started in the credit union industry, working in Flint, and 2008 came along, and people were losing houses everywhere. And we had people who were being turned out, and people who, jobs at GM, they were getting 60 hours a week, that went down to a firm 40. And so people who were living on overtime all of a sudden didn't have that anymore, and they're going past due. And us not repoing cars, and us not foreclosing on homes immediately, and us showing grace paid dividends until I left 7 years later. I'm saying. But I think some of those things too are those things that you can do that really keep that personal face on and keep people satisfied, is that you show that you care and that you understand what's going on and adjust appropriately versus having really strict structures and policy in place that can hinder the ability to serve people.
So your tweet for the audience is, data can still be personal.
Oh, 100%.
I think it's important for financial institutions to know. And I think Savvy Money, we've grown rapidly. We launched about 250 financial institutions on our solution last year. We're facing that same thing. How do we retain our customers? We call them partners, so if I use that word. But so we have an analytics platform, and it's where the FI can go in and mine the credit data that we're sharing with the consumer. And if we're seeing a financial institution isn't logging into our analytics platform, in our opinion, that's a gold mine. And if you're not logging in and using that data, what are we doing to help you? Picking up the phone, automated emails. Hey, Tracy, we'd love to get on the phone and show you how to use this data or make recommendations. And so we're facing this too, right? It's not just financial services. Your tech partners are also figuring out how do we use data to better serve you and be the best partners we can be. And we're sitting on that data. Your logins, how often are you scheduling meetings with us? Are you coming to our webinars? So we're facing that as well. Financial health. Oh, I love this topic. So how do you fully understand your customers or members' financial health? And I'm not going to judge you, I swear. Anyone?
Sure. So there's a few different ways we go about it. And I mentioned understanding all the different data sources that you have available to you, that there is no one report that we can look at or one algorithm that we can run that can tell us someone's financial health. And certainly sometimes the picture is as narrow as what we do have with them and what products and services we have with them. It's been phenomenal for us to partner with tech solutions that give us a broader view into what people have at other financial institutions so that we can understand the full picture. Sometimes consumer permissioned, sometimes working with bureaus, but trying to expand our line of sight to understand that. And then we do run algorithms that put people into personas. And then so we have up and comers, we have strapped and stressed, and we have different ways that we talk to those consumers based on our perception of their financial health and some of that information that changes over time as they move along their own journey.
And that's a journey that at CFCU where we weren't leveraging a lot of that data and leveraging our technology partners in a way that really diagnosed that. And so I think we can relate to a lot of people who are probably in that spot right now, like where do I start? And you start by starting, right? And you want to start to look at those different ways that people are struggling right now. One of the things that I would still do to this day is I read a report that's clickbait or whatever about people can't cover X dollars in an emergency, right? And then I say, okay, what does that look like in my membership? So you talk to the BI team, you have them pull that report. But even something like super simple to say 50% of the country can't meet $1,000 if emergency came up. Okay, so 50% of my membership, 42,000 people, can't do that. What am I doing to make that difference? right? And start to get that information out. And getting to a point where you're providing even more guidance and how-tos right on the website, right? Click this for a home buyer's guide in Plymouth, or in, pick whatever your community is. How do I buy a car? How do I do whatever? Start by giving the information out and then watch your data. Who's consuming it? Who's taking that in? Is it resonating or not? Are we providing advice on the website, or are we selling products? Is it a brochure? Or is it something that's creating a deeper, more meaningful experience? And then mine that data that you have internally, right? You know who has payments going from hey, like buy now, pay later. I have a 19-year-old son who did a BNPL Christmas for his girlfriend. And in January, he's like, I've got like 5 of these coming out from different people. He's like, I forgot about one. Like, yeah, that's hard, right? How do you manage all of that? We know who's doing that. And so how are we then presenting information to help make that clearer and make that easier? And I think that by leveraging those tools and then really encouraging account aggregation and saying, like, when I see that you take this information and you help me manage stuff better, I'm going to give you more data because you do good with it, right? Bringing that in.
Are you finding that from transaction data? I mean, what are the nuggets you're looking at?
Yeah, it's that transaction. Like, we know who the big players are in BNPL, in payday advance, in subprime personal loans. We know who they are. So you find the transaction string, then you query the database, and then you're like, here's my list of people, and here's what they're going through, and then I can put that up against Savvy Money data. Do they have online banking or not? I can now start aggregating all this stuff together to get a more holistic picture, because like I said, it can be really narrow if you don't have all the information, but some's better than none, and some action is better than no action, right? And it's just really start getting out there and try to show yourself as a person who's going to help on that journey and help them with those struggles and meet them where they're at, because again, it's a taboo topic, talking about money, and not every milestone is a positive one, right? Whether it's a person in the family dies, or you get divorced, or you have a kid going to college, that could be a great experience for somebody, or it could be a dreadful, stressful experience if you have to try to put your kid through college and can't afford it, right? So like, what are you doing to try to meet people in those moments?
How do you define and understand, what are the data points, Tracy, for your membership around financial health?
Very similar. So looking at some of those individual transaction elements and boiling it down to where people are spending. And credit repair companies are another big one for us, at least regionally where we are. And we can see those charges coming through and try to help them get on a different track. An interesting story for us in the rising interest rate environment. It was the first time for a lot of our members, particularly homeowners, with their equity products, that they were dealing with variable rate increases on these balances that they had had at historically low rates for such a low period of time. And it became an educational opportunity for us, right? Like, let's get out in front of that and talk to them about what this environment means and what they should do to plan ahead for larger payments coming in the future. And here's how you can change your auto pay, because we see that you're only set up to pay the minimum payment, and if you don't make that change, you're going to short pay next month. We were able to take that and unpack it, and it was narrowing in on the population of people who had that particular loan type, who were tied to prime, who had certain balances, who were making certain types of payments. So we weren't just putting that out on our website and expecting everybody to consume it and find it relevant for them, but rather directing it to the people that it would matter to most.
Any advice on, taking key life indicators, transactional data, credit report data? Where do you keep all that data? I mean, that's a big topic for FIs.
We're fortunate that we have a single source database for all of our KLIs. So we feed a lot of information into the KLI generator, if you will. And we are about to put the finishing touches and light switch on an API that will feed those KLIs into our marketing engine. So now the CRM will have knowledge of which key lifestyle indicators apply to members. And at that point, I can finally tie it in with my front end. So in our core platform, we've built a screen that we call the activity feed, and you can think of it like Facebook. It's a network feed, but it's the feed of everything that has happened to that member in recent history that could be relevant for the conversation that that person's about to have, or things that are upcoming, triggers that we may want them to mention. And we try to make it a standard that they pull one nugget out of that feed in a conversation to have with someone. It might be a fee that they were recently charged, and let's talk about why, and can I educate you, or an upcoming loan payment to make sure that they're aware that it's going to draw from their account. Whatever they can do to find one personal element, and now the KLIs will be in there too, which is great.
That's super cool. I was a teller in a past life, and so I won't say how many years ago, but we focused on just using the member's name at least 3 times. And what I would have done to have data like that, to have meaningful conversations, because I was supposed to also cross-sell products. I mean, we were a credit union focused on sales and service, and we were supposed to figure out what product we were supposed to offer. But we were kind of taking a shot in the dark, right, on, do you need a credit card? Do you have an auto loan somewhere else? And I'm kind of going through 50 transactions while trying to say your name 3 times. I probably embarrassed myself at least twice.
Just twice? I did a whole bunch of
I
times.
did that in the last 20 minutes. Anything else on financial health? And then we want to leave a few minutes for questions and answers. We've put together a great panel for you, but David, Casey, anything you guys are doing around financial health?
I just wanted to call out a theme I keep hearing over and over, and that's putting the member at the center of what you do and leveraging data in a positive manner. And it's something that I think the financial industry doesn't do enough. And these are great representations of taking data and using it in a meaningful way to make positive changes in your membership. So I commend you guys, and I think there should be more stories out there like that. And I see people in the crowd nodding because you know that those are happening every day in your institutions, and it's just great to hear.
That's a great tweet for this session, so thanks, Casey.
Tweet away.
So we've got about 3 minutes for Q&A. Any questions for any of our panelists? I think what we really tried to do for this session was merge together fintech partnerships and how we can partner together to use data and educate each other and leverage our strengths together to benefit the consumer, to make more meaningful, personalized communications, to meet the consumer where they are. And Zach, you look like you're about to say something profound, so.
Well,
no
thanks
pressure.
for that. No, I was just going to say that you commented earlier that our technology partners are looking at this data and trying to find ways to help us, and I think that's adorable that you assumed that all of our tech partners are doing that, and they're not. And I think that's one of the most important things for me as a takeaway too. When I'm talking with vendors, a lot of conversations that I had, because the vendor kind of buzzwords now, right, are they all want to be a partner, and very few demonstrate that in action. Right? There are people where I'm asking those questions of, once we get launched, what does it look like? Who's helping me be smart ongoing? Because I don't just want to solve the problem today, I want you to grow with me. And my biggest fear with data, and I said this actually in a panel in 2018, they're like, what's your biggest fear in digital and technology? And I said, looking stupid. And it still is, right? Like, don't make me look dumb. Don't tell me that you had a feature that you released a year and a half ago that I'm not aware existed. Like that, like, don't make me look at your website to figure out what I can do now. Help me help the people who I'm serving. And technology is never, ever, ever, ever a set it and forget it solution. And I see a lot of the credit unions I partner with and I talk to, I see them roll out, and I see it's a base product, right? They rolled out what was there and they let it go and expect it to just do the magic. And it's never that way. You've got to constantly be looking at that, managing those relationships, making sure that you're partnering with people who care, and if they don't, get out of those relationships. I have a tendency to break contracts early with people who aren't good. And I encourage more to do that, because I think that we get stuck sometimes and say, well, we've got 4 more years of this, we just got to kind of muscle through it. The opportunity cost of staying with a bad partner is just huge. And yeah.
Just quickly to add that I don't know if we've really touched on this, but having data is great, but you need people to look at it. That's really important.
And whether that's internal team members or the technology partner to empower you to learn how to do it. And, we're on this journey together. If our, tagline is your success is our success. So, question in the back.
Yes, thanks for that. It's really interesting.
Light years. I mean, yeah, the bar for their expectations is the last experience that they had outside of our industry, right? So as an industry, we're incredibly far behind the Amazon experiences of the world and the Meta experiences of the world. We have a lot of catching up to do. And the problem is the tech just keeps accelerating ahead of where even we can get to. So these partnerships become critical. And to Zach's point, the partnership that comes out of those tech solutions, because I'm also not going to be able to staff all that brain power internally either. So we have to all find ways to ramp up and accelerate together.
And stop being afraid to do something. You're right.
Do something.
One step.
Yeah, just to add, the issue is being compounded by the new generations of people coming through that they are more tech savvy. They are more demanding when it comes to tech, so we have to embrace it.
I have to reverse engineer our Gen Z staff to learn legacy banking platforms. Like, that's crazy.
Well, we are right on time. A round of applause for our panelists.